You disgust me, fat man. That is a diet I call death.
Paranoia. It's something Spy is very good at causing, even if you aren't dying to him. As soon as you realize there's a spy out there, he lives rent-free in your head. Spy is the best class for mind games, and it's something you need to do or at least consider when playing the class. He has multiple abilities that mess with other players' senses, and he can often make the enemy question what is real and what isn't. You are not playing against training bots here, and we're going to assume it's not the other type either. These are real players, and real players learn and adapt. And when coming up against you, a player that can insta-kill them from behind, they're going to react and adjust based on their experiences with you. Let's take this example. This new player gets backstabbed by a spy every time he passes through here. It'll work the first few times, but by the third and fourth time, basic human brain functions have kicked in, and they're going to do the single best thing you can do to prevent a backstab. Turn around. Of course, each player is different, and will react to spies differently and at different times. New players are going to be typically less aware of spy tells. Plus, they're preoccupied with simply learning how to play, so a good chunk of their attention has been allocated to that. Compare that to an experienced player. They aren't preoccupied with learning the game, and when heading to the front lines, their brain is deprived of dopamine. Therefore, they're looking for something to do, and that something is going to be watching for spies. For many players, it's best to wait until they're preoccupied with something else so you can have an opening to backstab them. Though sometimes even experienced players may also just run to the front lines absent-mindedly, but a knife in their back will quickly wake them up. Or put them to sleep, depending on your perspective. Point is, it's good to build up small psychological profiles of other players based on how they look and act, allowing you to anticipate their actions and reactions. Be prepared for their strategies to adjust as they become more aware of you. As mentioned before, the more you kill, the more people become aware of you, and therefore, the harder it becomes to get kills. It's not necessarily just for the people you do kill, but people become more aware of a spy's presence as he causes problems for their team. Experienced players are aware that if they don't deal with a spy, it can often become a problem later. Many are aware of the tells of a nearby spy, which includes
nearby backstabs, cloak sounds, seeing the spy cloak, clones, players acting strangely, disappearing health and ammo packs, shutter doors that open when they shouldn't, obvious dead ring of fans, spicicle statues, footsteps when nobody is nearby, or straight up seeing the spy by any means.
Even if these tells don't always directly lead to the spy being caught and killed, it does prepare players for an imminent spy attack. It's often best to assume players will notice these tells every time, even if they often don't. Though when players do suspect a nearby spy, they'll often use the spy voice command.
Spy!
Using the voice command is a quick and effective way to instantly raise the awareness of nearby teammates, but as the spy in question, you should also be listening out for this. Many players will instinctively call out spy when they suspect one is nearby, and this can be a surprisingly good way to tell if other players are aware of you or not. This may be obvious, but it's good to remember that your best targets are those that are distracted, as there are many actions that can put players into a distracted state.
Fighting other players, tunnel vision on a weak player, getting a health player.
Of course, these actions aren't guaranteed to put players in a distracted state, as they can bait out a spy attack or use methods to partially mitigate it. If you catch players out multiple times while they're distracted, you should expect them to either begin using these tactics or switch class entirely. In fact, it's not uncommon for you to backstab a sniper, only for him to come out of spawn with the Razorback. But in this case, Spy has that decloak that makes noise, and I decloaked behind him earlier, so I knew he most likely had no sound, so I just destroyed his Razorback and stabbed him anyway. Oh yeah, and also a gun! It's also good to note that a player in a distracted state will usually immediately snap out of it if they see or hear the before mentioned spy tells. But how can we use Paranoia to our advantage? Well, for one, players that become too focused on not dying to you often start dying to everything else. When players end up this paranoid, it may be a good idea to avoid them entirely. Chances are, you'll get caught by them anyway. So, just let them get so paranoid that they'll go on YouTube and look up spy tutorials just to try and counter spy. Speaking of getting into people's heads, paranoid players will often be more likely to hunt you down. Using cloak illusions, you can often fake where you've gone, and the aforementioned players will continue searching for you, not realizing that you've already got away. Illusions can be very good for distracting players, and messing with their perception of where you really are. In this clip, I'm disguised as Demo, but this medic here that I've already stabbed multiple times doesn't buy it. I fake going through this path, and the medic, thinking he knows where I've gone, turns around. This false sense of security, plus the noise pollution, allows me to decloak behind him and get a stab. The other noteworthy thing about Paranoia is how people may begin to catch on to your habits and strategies. You appear in the same spot every time, people will get used to it. You should either be mixing up your habits constantly to stay ahead of other players, or condition players into one habit, then switching to another. Because making people paranoid can make them harder to kill, there are methods that can be used to reduce or negate paranoia. As mentioned before, one of the strategies for doing this is to simply leave the player in question alone for a while. Let them play the game for a bit, and then strike when they calm down. A good hiding spot, or the cloak and dagger, can be really effective for this, as you can just sit somewhere and chill. You can continue to keep an eye on the fight while staying there, and the enemy team never has to know. You can also be more selective with when you appear and who you kill. Warning, I would highly recommend using the stock watch if you're new to spy, as the other watches teach new spies bad habits. Speaking of being selective, the Your Eternal Reward is the best weapon for being a silent assassin. Most players rely on hearing a backstab to become aware of a spy. However, the Your Eternal Reward with the silent backstabs and instant disguise takes that away. The result is that it more often causes only the players you kill to become paranoid of you, since almost everyone else doesn't realize you're there. This combined with the control over your timing the Cloak and Dagger gives you, you can turn into the ultimate Ghost Spy.
Oh no, he's very scared.
While these unlocks are effective in negating paranoia, these aren't the only methods of doing so. Doing your best to remain undetected prior to kills can slow down the ramp up of paranoia. Constantly changing up your playstyle based on the situation can also be of great benefit, as it can throw the enemy off. Players getting used to your dead ringer? Switch to stock invids. People are hearing your backstabs? Use the Your Eternal Reward. People chasing you down after a backstab? Use the Big Earner. Adapt the loadout to the situation and keep your enemy guessing. You can also bind keys to quick switch between loadouts. Personally, I use the arrow keys for this. But one of the best ways of reducing paranoia is switch off spy. What? I'm being serious, just play a different class. Because you know how to play other classes and not just spy, right? Right? But being able to off-class can render people's efforts to spy check for you completely useless. And as mentioned before, players that spy check too much can be much more vulnerable in other aspects. Plus, being able to play other classes gives you a good idea of how they work, how they think, and how to fight them. And once the enemy team calms down a bit, you may just be able to switch back and cause more problems.
What, sugar? Well,